Hey everyone, this is a video to explain the new NPI steps. As you can see, there's less of them. They've been streamlined and simplified, which I think will be a big help. But it's in many ways laid out in the same way as before. We have the steps here, you have the countries, and you have a recording of what date something has been done, or what day something is due. So you can see the key here. These ones are overdue. This color means that it's due in less than a month. This means it's due in more than a month. This means it's done. And this means it's not active. And not active means that stage hasn't been green lighted. So for example, children homes in South Africa are not active. If we were to decide we're going to do children homes in South Africa, let's say we made that decision today and I green light it by filling in the date there, look what happens. Suddenly we have, oops, I did it for a year ago. And now all these tasks are overdue. But if I do it for today, then you can see these become due in a not too distant but somewhat distant future. If I would have green lighted this a month ago, then you can see how some of these would already be overdue. But let's say if I did it December 20th, hopefully we can get some that are, these ones are the color of the stuff that's due within a month. And so it's all built so that it automatically creates deadlines for things and color codes it according to this key. But you'll notice that to do that, there's all these fancy formulas in here. But when you fill in a date, we don't really need the fancy formulas anymore. So all you do is you just overwrite it. So if I set up targeting analysis today in South Africa, I would just put in today's date, and then it becomes the day. It becomes the color of, well, actually because it was today, not yesterday. Let's say I did it yesterday. It becomes this blue color, meaning it's done. And this stuff becomes stuff that's coming up. And so how does it determine these dates? And that is the triggers. So every step has a lead, as before, and it has a trigger. And the trigger means how it tells you if establishing the organization is a trigger for doing a security assessment, then that means as soon as this establishing the organization is done, this becomes due 30 days later. So let's say that this was done on 1/1/18. Then you'll see how this is overdue. This is overdue. This is coming up in the next month, and this is due in the future, but more than 1 month. And all these dates. But as soon as the dates shift when I actually finish them. Let's say I get this done a little early, then now. Well, no, these dates actually don't shift because they're all based on this one. But some steps are based on the previous step. So as soon as this step is done, then this step, 60 days afterwards, this step comes due. So I want you guys to go in and I want you to take a look at the ones that you're to lead on. Make sure you're okay with it. Make sure you're okay with the trigger. Now, some of the triggers are, if I choose here, I have all these different options to choose as a trigger. And what that is that's everything in this column, including intercepts, arrests, station staff, homes, children. So I might have a trigger based on the number on staff. So that means now with these ones, this 75 means 75 days after this. But this 15 doesn't mean 15 days after staff, because we don't actually record the date that we achieved 15, 16, 17 staff. So these ones are set up so that as soon as we hit 15 staff, that becomes overdue. It actually becomes with a deadline of yesterday. So if I come in here in Zimbabwe, let's say that today in Zimbabwe we have 16 staff. Notice what comes up down there. Or if we have 31 staff, then those ones become due. Or if we have 50 staff, then all of them become overdue. And so that's how the triggers work. They can be based on either these things or other NPI steps or these green lights. So I want you guys to go in and I want you to check to make sure you're okay with this. The second thing I want you guys to do is I want you to fill in these two columns, the description and documentation. And you can see by the examples we have that it's pretty simple. You just fill in, you write a description of what it is. For the documentation, you're actually going to create a link. And so if I'm looking at this one right here, I click on the link and it opens up and it takes me straight to a documentation of what that step consists of. And in fact, there's a presentation, there's a checklist. I have the checklist here, and the presentation is here, and it's all there in the folder. Now, some of these steps, and it all goes in this folder. Some steps are just one document, in which case just put the file in the root folder. if it's multiple files, like save from appointment, then create a folder. And so that's what I want you to do. Is I want, for all the steps that you're the lead on, I want you to fill in the description and the documentation. And the third thing I want you to do is I want you to go in and I want you to fill in for all the steps that you're the lead on what dates they were done. So if I'm John Hudlow and I'm looking at the IRF, which I'm the lead on, well, I want to look, okay, have we done that in India? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the date that we did it. And well, that's in the future. So I just fill that in, and all I do is overwrite the formula because we don't need that fancy formula anymore once it's done. The whole point of the formula is to make sure it gets done on time. And so I just overwrite the date. And you don't have to get it exact. Try to get it a little bit close, but especially with stuff that's in the distant past, I certainly didn't bother to make it very accurate. I just tried to fill in roughly when it was done. But as you start filling this in, other stuff will start coming due. So if I fill in that we've green-lighted a pilot in India, which we have, let's say we did it on 1/1/2014, and all this stuff becomes overdue. But as soon as I start filling in these dates, then it's no longer overdue. And so the field starts to look more like Nepal, where almost everything is done. There's just a couple steps that I'm not clear if they've been done or not, and one I know that needs to be done. So yeah, so that's how this works. Again, you overwrite the formulas to fill in when a step has been finished. If you don't overwrite it, it will use the conditional formatting and formulas to determine when something should be done based on these triggers. And then it's going to take you, the lead, and it's going to take your tasks and it's going to assign them into your OECs. And that way we make sure these are staying in front of us, they're getting the attention they deserve, and that we're driving forward each field towards maturity on the timeline that we decide based on these triggers. So that is an overview. I think it's a powerful tool for keeping track of, both for us to know what we need to do and for a field to know, look ahead and be able to say, okay, what's coming down the pipeline? What's going to happen to us? What is Tiny Hands going to be doing for us in the future? They can understand that. And then if they wonder, what is that? What does that consist of? They can just simply access the documentation right here. And it also gives us a way to have a look at our overall impact right here, where we have the totals for arrests, intercepts, station staff, homes, and children. So thanks everyone for doing this. By next Friday, those 3 things, verifying that you're okay being the lead and that you're okay with the trigger, documentation over here, a description of the steps, and then filling in the dates for when the steps that have been completed were completed. But only fill those in for the ones that have been completed. So I want all that to be done by next Friday, and then this thing will be a really helpful and powerful way for us to track our overall progress. So again, thanks for your time, and look forward to seeing this.